Well, good afternoon, everyone. You may recall the President asked for about $45 billion in the supplemental. We've now negotiated it down to about 17. In my view, the money for Ukraine is critically important. So I think we've got this in the area where it should pass here in the next day or two. And then you're going to all say goodbye to us, and we're going to go out and slug it out for the next 6 weeks. And I think front and center for us is to take the case to the American people that inflation is outrageous, the border is open, and crime is rampant. And I think that will be, in most of our campaigns, the principal message will be taken to the American people this November.
One of the defining features of the Biden presidency is his willingness to sacrifice security for political gain. In the case of our economy is less secure today because of his reckless spending, which has given us the 40-year high inflation that everybody in this country, American families, are dealing with on a daily basis. Our nation's finances are less secure because of the student loan bailout, which is racking up to $1 trillion of additional debt in this country. Our nation's energy supply is less secure because of the President's willingness to rely on foreign countries and his resistance to creating homegrown sources of energy and all of the above American energy independence plan. And just to put a fine point on that, if you look at the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is supposed to be for emergencies, has been used routinely by this administration to try and score political points with the American people, to the tune that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is at its lowest level since 1984. And if you look at the border, again, the country is just less secure. This fiscal year, the numbers that we have up until the final month of this fiscal year, has the number of apprehensions at the border now over 2 million, which is historic record. Never seen anything like that in terms of apprehensions, and that doesn't count the gotaways, those people that get through that don't get counted. And what's probably even more disturbing about that is, of all those folks that they've apprehended at the border, there have been 78 people apprehended in this last year that were on the terrorist watch list, which is 5 times the amount that they've had in the last 5 years combined. So these are historic problems that this administration and their leadership here in Congress have created. We need an America that is more secure when it comes to our economy, more secure when it comes to energy security, and more secure when it comes to our national security. And I can assure you that if the Republicans get the majority here in the Senate after this election, we will reprioritize and the agenda that this administration has put forward, and hopefully get Joe Biden to become the moderate that he promised he would be in the first place.
We are 20 months into this period where the Democrats have been in complete control in Washington, D.C. So where are we? Well, we're at the worst inflation in the history in 40 years. You have the great majority of Americans saying that the country is on the wrong track and is coming off the rails. 25-year high of murder in states across the country. We've seen a porous border. And a really disgraceful and deadly evacuation from Afghanistan. So where were we when Joe Biden came to office in January of 2021? Gas prices were $2.35 a gallon. Inflation was negligible. Under Joe Biden, prices are now up over 13% since the day he came to office. And families cannot afford to fill their grocery cart and their gas tank in the same week. People are really hurting and struggling as they see their savings, their retirements melting away. And then Kamala Harris goes on TV and says the border is secure. Millions and millions and millions of illegal border crossings have occurred since they've been in office. She's either lying or she is clueless. When you look at the amount of fentanyl coming across the border and the deaths, over 100,000 Americans dead from fentanyl brought in by drug cartels, and the vice president thinks everything is fine at the border. And then the Democrats went on this reckless tax and spending spree. But they didn't spend on issues that were important to the American people. They ignored inflation, ignored affordable energy, ignored crime, and ignored the border. And the money they poured onto the economy and the spending added to make inflation worse. There are Democrat economists who are very well respected, who said to the House and said to the Senate and said to the White House, do not do this. This is going to be bad for the economy. It's going to be bad for inflation. And the Democrats in the House and the Senate and the White House just ignored them. And then Joe Biden goes on television on 60 Minutes and is dismissive of the inflation that is hitting the American people because he's that far out of touch. So here we are, 20 months later. This is the nation where people all across the country feel that they have been forgotten, ignored, and betrayed by the Democrats. The Democrats in the House, Senate, and White House have failed the American people, and voters will have a chance to express their opinion on this in 6 weeks.
Well, folks, I'm one county shy of completing my 99-county tour, so just one remaining county. And this last Monday, I was able to start the day with a group of law enforcement officials in northwestern Iowa in O'Brien County. And these law enforcement officials that came together, they wanted to talk mostly about drug trafficking. And so we started with the normal conversation centering around methamphetamine. That's still the #1 drug of choice in Iowa. However, what was new to this recurring conversation is that we are seeing more fentanyl in Iowa. And this is a real issue. They are very worried about what this is doing to our communities. So I asked them, okay, where is it coming from? Yes, you know where I'm going with this. It's the wide open southern border. And they said this administration's inability to stop the flow coming in from our southern border is poisoning our Iowa communities. It flows up Interstate 35. It hits other highways and byways all along the way, including I-80, and it runs all across the United States. So we have got to do something about this. I've got a couple different common sense solutions that would help curb this. One is charging those distributors who knowingly deliver products tainted with fentanyl, charge them with felony murder. The second thing is there's a lot of spotters along our border working for the drug cartels, and it is imposing steeper fines on those that are spotters, enabling the cartels, as well as a maximum prison time of up to 10 years. We've got to get serious about this, folks. Our children are at risk, our populations are at risk, and we're knowingly allowing it to happen here in the United States by not closing up our border and enforcing stiffer penalties with the drug cartels and their enablers.
Leader McConnell.
Yeah.
Leader McConnell.
Chad.
There's a proposal in the House that deals with stock trades by members. To what degree do you think members should be allowed to trade stocks, and should any of those limits go to family members or even staff?
Well, we've had very few discussions over here about that particular measure, and I'm not really conversant with the details of what the House may be doing. I can only speak for myself. I only have investments in mutual funds, and I decided a number of years ago I thought that was the best way to avoid criticism that somehow I was trading stocks as a result of insider information. So that's the way I've operated for years. Beyond that, I don't have any observations.
You've been very clear about where you think the election is going to return on those issues, the economy, inflation, crime. But are you being overly dismissive about the impact abortion might have, especially among suburban women, and some of these crucial battleground stages and parties not espouse a clear strategy about how you want to deal with it?
Well, I think that issue is playing out in different ways in different states. The three big national issues that we're going to be addressing here that people are most concerned about nationally are the ones that I mentioned: inflation, crime, and open borders. That's clearly where we're going to be putting the focus. With regard to the issue you raised, I think every one of our candidates may have a different answer to that depending upon where they are.
What more can we do on inflation, particularly when so much of the problem is global, especially energy and the Fed?
Well, let me tell you where we are. Yeah, where we are now is the Fed is going to have to squeeze this inflation down. There's no other way to fix it. After this explosion of spending, $1.9 trillion last year, another $750 billion this year, it produced this rampant inflation, as others pointed out, the highest in 40 years. The solution, at least on the fiscal side, quit doing what we've been doing. On the monetary side, the chairman of the Fed's been quite clear. It's going to have to raise rates. That runs the risk of having a recession. And that'll be the price the American people have to pay. Once again, not only are they paying too much now, but then they may have to suffer through the recession that was created, and some would argue it's already here, by the Fed providing the only fix that anybody's been able to think of to begin to grind inflation down.
Leader McConnell, just as we head into the election, do you still stand by your comments about candidate quality, or has your outlook changed?
In every election, every year, this year, past years, it's great to have terrific candidates. We're in a bunch of close races. I think we have a 50-50 shot of getting the Senate back. It's going to be really, really close either way, in my view.
Leader McConnell?